Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, a 106-year-old woman in England says her secret to longevity is chocolate and partying. What's yours?
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Anxiety and resentment. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Doubling
know
down
go
on
106
anxiety and resentment.
with that. You know what? I'll double down on chocolate and partying. Yeah, I'm
Really?
with that.
No.
Oh, I'm with that.
No.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Anxiety and resentment. It's going to get me to at least, I don't know. Well, I'm about 95 now. 2 years more. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Sam Darnold's future, Duke's prowess, and Jose Altuve's new position. But we begin today with Kyrie Irving tearing his ACL late in the first quarter last night on a drive to the basket against Sacramento. Irving went down and immediately signaled for a trainer. The ACL tear was diagnosed this morning, and Irving will be out for the rest of this season and maybe next as well. Wilbon, what now for Irving and the Mavericks?
Oh, Tony, nothing good. I mean, nothing good. I mean, I don't. We're all waiting to see if Anthony Davis could get back and Derek Lively could get back and, you know, Gafford could get back and can Dallas make a run and what? And can they play in a series against the Lakers early? Now the season is lost. What's next? If I was running the Mavericks, I would say, Anthony Davis, you're not playing the rest of this year. We're going to go the opposite Joel Embiid route. We're going to let Anthony Davis be the best he can be physically by just taking some months off and working with trainer, nutritionists, all those things that elite level NBA teams and players surround themselves with. We do that. Kyrie Irving is going to be essentially a free agent, player option, free agent. And I don't know what happens, Tony. What do you do if you're Dallas? How long do you wait to see what's going to happen to a 30-year-old or slightly older than person with a torn ACL? He was, you know, nothing's ever been wrong with Kyrie in terms of basketball. There was a time in which locker room-wise he seemed toxic. He got in Dallas, and he's been getting it done. He's turned into a leader, a responsible spokesman. He handled the trade in ways that were just amazing to me. Everything he said, he sounded the right note. He took the right approach. He was everything the franchise could want. And now this, I don't know where you go from here.
So you underestimated his age by a little bit. He's about to turn 33. He's older than you think.
Okay.
If you are right now the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, Nico Harrison, you are done. You're done. I mean, maybe this creates a pool of sympathy, or maybe you can work the owners and you can say to the owners, it really would have worked if nobody got hurt. But the owners just raised ticket prices, so they have problems of their own.
Yeah.
You traded away Luka Doncic, the most popular player on the team. You got back Anthony Davis, who has played part of one game, and who knows when he's going to be back. You just lost your best player, Kyrie Irving, and who knows when he is going to be back. So it just feels like it's completely over in Dallas at the moment. I was one of those guys, Mike, as you know, who thought in the near term that trade would work out. But that's because of Irving and Davis, because they had championship rings.
Yeah.
And they're gone, and nobody else on that team has a championship ring. Dallas at the moment is 33-30. They're in 10th place. The only thing that's going to keep them from dropping out of the play-in is Phoenix. Because Phoenix stinks. So Phoenix isn't going to catch them. Phoenix somehow, with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, they actually got worse. These two teams at the moment, Dallas and Phoenix, are disasters. They're disasters.
Yeah, but Phoenix is a different kind of – Phoenix is an on-court disaster, and you trade some people away, you do some – the Dallas thing, Tony, I said to somebody earlier, this is like the curse of the Bambino. I mean, this is like trading away Babe Ruth, and then the rest of it goes to hell. Trade away,
Mike,
Luka.
Mike, Nico Harrison took a master class in how to be a terrible GM. It's all bad. It's all bad. It's all bad.
Yeah, less than a year after coming off a trip to the NBA Finals, where it was all good. Sam Darnold, moving to the NFL, could be looking for a new team after the Vikings chose not to franchise tag him, a couple hours ago. Darnold had a Pro Bowl season for Minnesota and looked like a lock for a big deal himself before struggling in his last two starts. The team is reportedly still interested in working to re-sign him, but he now becomes an unrestricted free agent. Tone, if you were Darnold, would you want to stay?
So if I'm Darnold, it depends on the money. If the money isn't better anywhere else than it is in Minnesota, you could probably let me stay because I know that the coach at Minnesota brought out the best in me. And I know they like J.J. McCarthy, but I would have been on a team with him for a year, and I would have felt that I could work with him. Mike, this is such a small sample size of influence here. For 16 games, Sam Darnold was all-world. The Vikings were 14-2. He had 35 touchdowns, only 12 interceptions. They weren't going to franchise him. They were going to extend him. Okay, they had McCarthy. They liked McCarthy, but he was out for the whole year. This guy, Sam Darnold, was the bird in the hand. And then they lost to Detroit 31-9, and Darnold was bad in that game. He threw the ball 41 times, only gained 163 yards in the air, no touchdowns, a bad game. Followed it up with a bad game. His numbers were better in the playoff loss to the Rams, but they weren't appreciably better. So in those two games, Mike, his offense accumulated just one touchdown. They lost by combined scores of 58-18, and he had 11 sacks, and that's where we are right now. Like it all turned in two games.
Well, but it didn't, Tony. I'm going to tell you why it didn't. This conversation was already going on, and maybe I pay more attention to it because it's my division. It's a little off the beaten path for you I-95ers, but they weren't convinced about keeping Sam Darnold anyway. Because what they were concerned about is at some point next season, not the final two games, he was going to turn into, hello, Sam Darnold. And this conversation was already starting. And even if he had played well in those two games, he was still going to have to prove it in the playoffs and say, get to the conference final, the championship game, before the Vikings were going to commit to him because they got the prized fair-haired rookie sitting on the bench waiting to come back from his own injury.
Played. Haven't played it down.
It doesn't matter. He hasn't played anyway. He hasn't played anyway. Still haven't played. That doesn't change. They were waiting for Sam Darnold for the trap door to open and for him to fall through in Minnesota. Now, it's easier now. It's easier because he had those two games, and it provides an excuse. Yeah. It changes the narrative. Yeah. They didn't know. To answer our original question, would you want to stay? I think I would want to stay because I'm going to get more than a one-year deal because I'm not franchised. And if I can get, or if I can get from somebody else or whomever 3 years at $30 million each, $100 million or approaching that for Sam Darnold for a guy who was left for roadkill a year ago might be pretty good and a chance.
Before we get to the next story, why would anybody give him $30 million a year if he's fallen through the trap door in every city he's been in, according to you? No, not
Giants?
that much money. Not that much money. No. Let's move
keep
to
tabs
Duke.
On this.
Duke beat Wake Forest last night by 33 points. This is the fourth straight game Duke has won by more than 30. Cooper Flagg had 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals in what might have been his last game at Cameron, where he is now, 17-0. Wilbon, have the Blue Devils convinced you they are a dominant team?
Hell no. This is March 4th, isn't it? What are we talking about here? No. I'm not 19 years old. I've covered Georgetown when they dominated the regular season and didn't win. I covered I was around covering the ACC when they had a player named Michael Jordan. They didn't win. He won as a freshman, but they were great after that in the regular season. Didn't win. I've seen Duke teams be great in the regular season and not win. I've seen UNLV be great and just plow through people in the regular season and not win. So no, I can keep going, but I won't. Yeah. So, I know the ACC is down too, so it's easier to just plow through the ACC. But no, I've seen great teams be great in great conferences and have great seasons and flame out before holding a trophy on Monday night in March or April because they didn't get to do it.
Okay, so the question is, are they a dominant team? They are a dominant team in the ACC. They are 18-1 in the ACC. They have won 10 games by 25 or more points. Some years back when the ACC was what we recognized, we would have said, yes, they are a dominant team. But the ACC isn't like it was when we covered in the 80s and 90s. It's not like that. They got 3 ranked teams. They got Duke, they got Clemson, they got Louisville. I read somewhere that there are 9 ACC teams that are outside the top 100, right? That's not good. Now, Duke has beaten Auburn, Mike. That's a great win. That's over the number 1 team in the country. But it was December 5th in Cameron, and sadly, they're not playing the NCAAs in Cameron. Do I think they can win the national championship? Yes.
Sure.
Do I think they're a dominant team in the way that I thought UConn last year in their second year was a dominant team? No,
Good example.
I don't.
Good example.
Yeah, I don't think they are that kind of team at the moment. What interested me, I watched that game last night, what interested me the most was the Duke fans cheering one more year at Cooper Flagg. And I have to say, Mike, I agree with them. He's 18 years old. He can't play against men 30 to 35 years old physically. He can't do it. If I were him, I would consider getting $5 million from NIL, which would be easy for him, and play him. Get more than you can get in the pros,
Yeah,
and then and then stay one more year, work on your physical. Larry Bird, who he's compared to all the time, wasn't Larry Bird 22 or 23 when he went to the NBA? Wasn't he?
At least 23 or 24. 18. Larry had worked a real job and gone back to school. He wasn't 18. No, you're right.
Yeah, let's take a break. Coming up, Jose Altuve has been an all-star second baseman 9 times. So does it make sense for the Astros to move him to left field?
Steve Kerr says NBA refs are missing too many traveling calls. What's the word for that? Scouts now would tell you, oh, Bird's too old. We like him at 18, 19. That Larry Bird, Larry Joe Bird, he's too old. They were saying...
Time to play a little lingo bingo, and what's the word? What's first?
The Astros moving Jose Altuve from second base to left field is blank.
It's weird. What is the reason for this? This guy is a Hall of Fame second baseman, right? These numbers, he's played 1,767 games for Houston in a defensive position. And 1,765 of them, that defensive position was second. Mike, he had the best fielding percentage among second basemen in the American League last year. He's going to be 35 in May. Isn't the outfield tougher on your legs? There was some thought that when they were trying to keep Alex Bregman, that to keep the integrity of the infield, they might move Bregman to second and might move Altuve to left. But has anybody told them that Bregman signed with the Red Sox? And here's Altuve in left, and he says he likes it. So I don't want to be critical. I just think it's weird.
Tony, I'm with you. I'm going to echo everything you said. It's puzzling is my word. Because, I thought when I first heard this, I presumed, given the Astros' recent history, that they had some ace in the minor leagues who played second base, some 20-year-old stud phenom who was going to move up and take the place, snatch the baton from the future Hall of Fame second baseman Altuve, as you said. But that appears not to be the case, or not yet, unless the Astros have got somebody stashed somewhere in the world that we haven't identified him yet. Because the Astros, if you're going to take somebody's scouting department, I'll take the Astros, and you can have whoever's next in the major leagues. I'll take the Astros. But, Tone, if that's not the case, and you put Altuve out where he's got to run more.
I don't get it.
It's puzzling. Puzzling to me.
Yes, it just doesn't make sense. What's next?
Steve Kerr's complaints about traveling are blank.
They are unassailable, but this has been going on for a long time. Referees do not call walking in the NBA. You can take 4 or 5 steps, and they don't call it. They call it a Euro step or a crab dribble, but they don't call it what it is, which is walking. Here is what Kerr said. This direct quote. I don't understand why we are not teaching our officials to call traveling in this league. I see 5 or 6 travels a game that aren't called. There's a problem when there are like 100 fans in the stands and coaches on the sideline and everyone is signaling for travel. He's right, but again, it's been going on for 20 years. Much like the NFL, the NBA is trying to protect offense. It's all about offense. Adam Silver could change this with 1 letter, and he's not going to do it.
No, Tony, and that's why my word is ignored. They know Steve Kerr is telling the truth. He's accurate. They don't want to hear it. I wish we'd had Steve Kerr last night in Evanston, Illinois, where the Big Ten refs hosed Doug Collins' son's team hosed Northwestern and handed a victory to UCLA after a huge comeback. I wish he'd been there for that because Doug Collins knows there's traveling and too much of it too. He and Steve Kerr would be aligned on that, and I wish Steve had been with us and we could have crusaded because I'm still angry about getting hosed at home in the senior night game. But ignored, Tony. They don't. The NBA wants people taking off. They want 19-year-olds not to have NIL money. They want the 19-year-olds like your boy in Durham taking off from the foul line after 6 steps or a Euro step or a crab dribble and flushing it. And so those complaints will be ignored.
That's the final word. Let's take one last break still to come. The Jets are reportedly saying goodbye to a receiver they just traded for.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes for 50 again. Good thing he didn't have the Big Ten refs going against him last night. He'd have been held to about 30.
So the Purple got hosed. The Purple got hosed, you're saying,
Purple
right?
got hosed. I was on the court very near the end of the game. Had to hold me down. I needed to be held.
Tonight on
Starting the Interruption is brought to you by UFC 313. Saturday. Buy now at ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Happy time, people. Happy 80th birthday, Gary Williams. This is from our hearts because Gary is our friend of long standing. When I was writing a column for the Washington Post, I tried to stay away from Gary's games because I knew I could not be objective. I will try and be objective now when I say that Gary coached harder and with more intensity than any coach I've ever known. Nobody prepared his team better than Gary. Nobody game coached better than Gary. Got everything out of his players. Gary coached at American, at Boston College, at Ohio State, and ultimately at his alma mater, Maryland, where he won the national championship in 2002. His career record was 668 and 380, and he's in the Hall of Fame because everyone recognized how good he was.
Hear, hear. Tony, before you semi-retired to the golf course and started your long, self-imposed trek to the attic, I, because of all that, got to be with Gary Williams in Maryland game after game, season after season. And I feel honored when I look back on it to have been there for Gary taking Maryland to the Final Four, Gary taking Maryland to the national championship. And I feel honored that I got to go back-to-back college basketball coaches as a reporter with John Thompson and Gary Williams. I think you were there for that too. We had a pretty good run.
I was there for some of it, and now I'm there on the golf course with Gary. Happy anniversary, Jacksonville Dolphins. On this day 55 years ago, the little-known school without a conference affiliation became the first college basketball team ever to average 100 points a game. Joe Williams recruited 2 7-footers, Artis Gilmore and Pembroke Burrows III, put him out there with guard Rex Morgan, and finished the regular season 23-1. There was talk that Jacksonville only made the NCAA tournament because they played a weak schedule. So in their first 3 tournament games, they beat Western Kentucky, Big Ten champion Iowa, and Blue Blood Kentucky, scoring over 100 in each game. Jacksonville beat St. Bonaventure in the national semifinal, but ultimately lost to the UCLA team of Sidney Wicks, Curtis Rowe, and Henry Bibby 80-69 in the final.
Doesn't it sound like the story we just did on Duke to start the show? They were dominant. They scored 100 points in every game, and they didn't win. So does anybody know they were dominant? Let me just talk about the difference real quick between college basketball then and now. It was appointment viewing to see Jacksonville once. When I was 11 years old, you had to watch him in the Final Four. It's the only time you got to see him. Thankfully, the world has changed.
Happy trails to last night's game for the Grizzlies. The Hawks and Grizz were tied with seconds left when Atlanta's Dyson Daniels picked the ball from Desmond Bane, dribbled once, then passed ahead to Karis LeVert, who won the game at the buzzer. LeVert made the shot, but Daniels is the story here. The 21-year-old is leading the league with 3 steals per game. That's 67% more than the player in second place, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Australian will be the first NBA player in 31 years to average 3 steals per game, living up to his fabulous nickname of the Great Barrier Thief.
That is such a great nickname. You're right, Tony. You don't have to have the first, second, or third pick to find players of consequence in the draft. He was 8th. Now, Atlanta can scout him and find him. I wouldn't have gotten rid of DeAndre Hunter that quickly to send him away, but they know how to scout and find some players.
You like him, right? You think he's a find. You like him.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
all I'm saying.
I like him.
Let's go to the big finish. The Eagles made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in history with a 2-year, $41 million contract extension. You happy for him?
Yeah, I am. I like running backs, but he's the only one making more than 20 mil. Maybe it'll change the approach to running backs. The Jets have released Davante Adams. Oh, your reaction.
They released Aaron Rodgers as well. They came as a tag team. Adams came there because of Rodgers. No point in being there now.
Out.
The Yankees shutting down Luis Gil for at least 6 weeks due to a lat strain. Is that significant?
Yeah, it was Rookie of the Year, 15-7, 3.5 ERA. They got some depth in pitching, but you still want him. Bill Belichick and North Carolina will not be on HBO's Hard Knocks after the deal fell apart. Your thoughts?
I don't think college teams should be on that show anyway, but apparently there are owners in the NFL that did not want Belichick on NFL film. They must not like him. Last one, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had his fourth 50-point game in 7 weeks. Big deal?
You with Jordan and Wilt, it's a big deal. But let me ask you this real quick. I know you don't vote anymore, but if you had to vote for MVP, SGA or
Too
Joker?
soon. Too soon. 20 games left.
You want me to wait?
Too soon.
Hold my ballot? All
Yes.
right.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. Patrick Cullen, shout out.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. I'm not paying a fine to the Big Ten, Tony. I'm just telling you, not paying.
It's okay. You don't have to. And no early voting on MVP. Come on now.
Okay.
No early voting.
This is Sportsin with Hannah Storm and Jay Harris.
Yes, it is. And PTI back in moments describing the last month for the Mavericks following the Kyrie Irving.
Oof. Wow,
Yes.
rough. All right, first to the NFL with a game of tag. The NFL deadline to use the franchise tag was this afternoon. It has blown by us now, and the Vikings did not use it on quarterback Sam Darnold. Adam Schefter reporting that the team is, though, still interested in re-signing him. He had a career year in his one season in Minnesota. But the Vikings also have former first-round pick J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings. NFL analyst and our former quarterback Tim Hasselbeck joins us now. So what's your reaction to the Vikings' decision to not tag Darnold?
You know, in some ways, Hannah, I'm not surprised because, you know, it sounded like they want to build around J.J. McCarthy. But look, for me, I would have made the decision to tag Darnold. Really would have made the decision to build around Sam Darnold. Just 27 years old. He threw 35 touchdowns last year. Like, you know he can play. And so I just would say for Sam Darnold going forward, I'm a team like the Raiders, the Indianapolis Colts, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tennessee Titans, anybody that needs a quarterback, I would be very interested in trying to figure out if doing a deal with Sam Darnold makes sense. Because at his age, what he's, you know, the adversity that he's played through, what he proved that he could do a year ago, I think he's worth building around.
Yeah, and he was in the perfect place, and they benefited as well from his presence. 14 wins, second most in team history in a season. All right, let's go to another really interesting offseason question. The Jets continued their makeover under new head coach Aaron Glenn. Rich Cimini reporting they're releasing receiver Davante Adams and allowing fellow wideout Allen Lazard to seek a trade. New York already said it's cutting ties with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, both those receivers were brought in because of him. Adams just lasting 11 games with the Jets. And you would think, Tim, that there could be a good half a dozen teams out there at least that could use somebody like Davante Adams. Who do you think makes sense?
Well, I think there are a few teams that make sense. I think the San Francisco 49ers make sense. They just traded away a really good, wide receiver. I think that returning to the Green Bay Packers could potentially make sense. I think there are plays, like you said it, Hannah, there are going to be a lot of teams interested in veteran wide receivers. Now, it's a pretty good group of veteran wide receivers that, will be on the market. Chris Godwin, maybe Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, guys like that. And so I think it'll be crowded, but I think there will be a landing spot for Davante Adams. And I say it in part two because, look, I think at this point he knows he's not a number one wide receiver. At the same time, there's still a lot of production value there. And then I think it's always important for a team to have guys in your wide receiver room that are pros, that know how to approach, that know how to prepare. And that's important. And so I think that the market will be strong for Devontae Adams and other veteran wide receivers.
And he's seen all the highs and lows, hasn't he, in the NFL, right? From the highs in Green Bay to tough times in Vegas to the situation with the Jets. Experienced in a lot of ways, including those 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Tim, thank you. Back with Tim in just a bit as he returns to talk about the quarterback carousel and which quarterback makes the most sense for the Steelers moving forward. Something Jay is very interested in.
Oh, yes, I am. And I'm interested in this, too, developing story from the NBA. Shams Charania reporting Mavs star Kyrie Irving is going to miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL in his left knee. Happened right there last night against the Kings. Kyrie has been the man in Dallas after the Luka trade, trying to keep the team afloat until Anthony Davis gets healthy. Now, the Mavericks are 22 games over 500 when Kyrie Irving is active in the last 3 seasons. They are 8 games under 500 when he does not appear in the game. They're averaging 3 more points per game with Kyrie playing. Now, we may have seen his last game in a Dallas uniform. Kyrie has a $44 million player option for next year, so he could become a free agent. Our NBA reporter Tim McMahon usually covers the Mavs, but he's on the scene in Phoenix right now. Tim, what more can you tell us about how this injury impacts Kyrie's future in Dallas?
Howdy, Jay. There was certainly an anticipation before this injury that Kyrie and the Mavericks would work together to either extend off that player option or have him decline that and sign him to a new long-term deal. This can be a ruthless business, to borrow the term that Kyrie Irving used in the wake of the Luka Doncic trade. How this injury changes that equation, I don't know. What I can tell you is from the top of the Mavericks organization all the way down through it, there is a great appreciation for Kyrie Irving, not just the performance on the floor, but as the voice in that locker room, as the leader of that franchise. He has been everything that the Dallas Mavericks hoped he would be when they made the trade to get him from Brooklyn. And I cannot imagine the Mavericks not wanting to keep Kyrie Irving moving forward. Yeah, same. Again, Kyrie Irving out for the season with that torn ACL. Again, could be a free agent this offseason. We'll keep an eye on all of that. Okay, Tim, you're there in Phoenix, where the Suns also have had a disappointing season, but this injury could present an opportunity for them. What's the feeling within the organization now with 21 games left to play? Well, certainly there's no celebrating the misfortune of Kyrie Irving, but there is an opportunity for the Suns to move up in the standings, to get into the play-in, and at that point, they feel like with their talent, anything is possible. And I was talking to a Sun source today, and he said, we're not as far away as the standings indicate. That's both long-term and in the here and now. Now, there are a lot of issues in Phoenix. The whole is far less than the sum of the parts for the Suns so far this season. Devin Booker has been very open and honest about how much he feels like communication has been a problem, how these guys have not been on the same page. They've won 3 games since the start of February. They have an opportunity, but they better turn their season around fast to take advantage of that. Again, the Suns trail the Mavs by 3.5 games for that final play-in spot in the West. Tim McMahon with the latest. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. It has been a rough month and a half for the Mavericks. It all started back January 14th when Derek Lively injured his ankle. He has not played since. Then 2 weeks later, the Mavericks traded Luka, who was injured at the time, to the Lakers. And Anthony Davis, part of the trade, made his Dallas debut February the 8th and promptly injured his hip. He hasn't played since. Then in Dallas's next game, Daniel Gafford injured his knee. Hannah, I told you it was
all the
rough.
big men going down.
All of them.
Yeah, Lively's still in a boot, too.
It was really rough yesterday. Mavericks announcing they would be raising ticket prices by 8%. And then a
little tone deaf.
A little bit. And Kyrie Irving tears his ACL last night in Sacramento. For more on Dallas's rough, to Mike and Tony, up on this topic.
All right, Wilbon, how would you describe the Mavericks last month?
Crushing, Tony. That's the word I would use, because, I mean, you've got this series of things that have happened now, starting, of course, with the trade away of Luka Doncic. I mean, people who haven't been to North Texas lately, they may associate more of it with the star on the helmet and the Cowboys. No, the Cowboys haven't been to any finals. The Mavericks were just in the finals. And the player, the kids there and teenagers there and old folks there, the jersey they wanted to wear, the kid they wanted to have as their own for the rest of time, for the next 15 years at least, was Luka Doncic. The 77, that's what they wanted. They had him. And so even if the Mavericks weren't going to get to the finals every year, even if they were to get aced out sometime, they had Luka Doncic. And they got to the finals, and they had Kyrie going well. Kyrie was playing his best basketball. It turned into something really of a leader. And it was all working. And now it's gone. It's all gone. How about this 4 words to describe the last month? Poof. It's just gone. I feel for him.
Yeah. Yeah, disaster is the word that I would settle on first. It's a complete disaster. It will surely cost the GM, Nico Harrison, his job, unless he can convince the ownership that it all would have worked if guys hadn't gotten hurt. But ownership raised ticket prices recently, announced the raise in ticket prices. So for a team that just traded away Luka Doncic, so they got problems of their own. They trade away, as you say, the most popular guy in the area. The guy they bring in, Anthony Davis, gets hurt in the first game that he plays. Now, I have no idea when he's getting back. And now Kyrie Irving is out for the rest of this year and maybe next year as well. I mean, it's everything that they touched turned to rags at their feet. It's a total disaster for that franchise. They ought to now think about moving. They're
not thinking about moving. Dallas is one of the 10 biggest cities in America. They're not going to think about moving. The league wouldn't let them. They'd be ill-advised to let that happen. This franchise in Vegas, then put a damn expansion franchise in Vegas. You're not going to move the Dallas Mavericks, who have been in the finals twice and won. And come on now, you're not going to do that.
How do they look right now? How do they look right now? And how is their relationship with the city right now?
Listen, it was built on 3 pillars: Luka, and then Kyrie, and then Anthony Davis. Now there are no pillars. It's
that's what I'm saying.
Poof. That's it. We, like the Mavericks, are done.
Yeah, I think that's